Hello, welcome to Unit 9, Video 5, that is 9.5. We are going to be covering apps starting today, so we've got about, let's see, a week, half of week 9, then 10, 11, 12, so we've got about 3.5 weeks worth of app creation left in this class, and you are staring right at the screen of Xamarin Studio, which is the product we'll be using to create our apps, and let's get right into it. So basically, if you go onto our page and you go to the content section, I have a link that you can grab under software information, Windows installation. And you go under Windows installation and there's a Xamarin starter installer. Okay, the Xamarin installer is located right here on this page, so you can just click on that and download it. That is the full installer, and actually so basically just click on this and grab it. I'm just going to grab it right here so I can show you what is going on. So I should have that download to my download folders now, and can show you what that looks like. It's actually packaged as a zip, so I'm going to paste this back over here. I've already got it installed, but I just want to show you what the first screen looks like at least. This is the Xamarin installer. It's going to go through and basically it'll ask you a bunch of questions. You can just kind of follow it along with it. It should be pretty painless. This will automatically install a number of things. It will install the Android SDK for you. It will install Mono. It will install GTK. And it will install Xamarin Studio, which is the main thing that you want. Mine is probably giving me issues because I've already installed it. It should look like this. It says it's installing Xamarin, all its prereqs, and then you got to agree to the licensing terms. On this one, I wanted to show you this one because basically you need to check. I've already installed Xamarin Android, so it's got it unchecked. You'll need to check that box, and don't worry about Xamarin iOS. You can optionally install that if you want. If you want to deploy it to iOS, most of the stuff we're making should be cross-platform, and that's kind of the beauty of Xamarin, is that you can develop for both Android and iOS at the same time. So you might as well just select on all of these, but at least select on Xamarin Android and Xamarin for Visual Studio. Those are the two main ones that you'll need. Xamarin also works on Mac, so if you are using a Mac, you can get the installer for Mac off their main site. I'm just going to click cancel on this. The main Xamarin site is located here. If you go to xamarin.com, and you can just grab whatever you want off here pretty much. Now, as far as the build itself goes, we're going to be using the free version, the starter version of Xamarin, which is free, as you can see here, for individuals. It allows you to deploy to device. It even allows you to deploy to app stores. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't give you a huge code base. You have a limited code base of 64K worth of executable that you can install. So that's good enough for the purposes of this class. We're going to be doing fairly small apps and just kind of get you used to this. There is an educational discount, which is $99, which is not very bad for a basically perpetual license of Xamarin. At UWGB, we have that for our students and faculty as well, of course. And we basically just use the $99 version that's paid for by our department. But if you wanted to purchase that yourself, you're free to do so. You just need to basically identify yourself as a student, send in your student ID and all that kind of stuff. And then if you do that, then you get the full version, and you can make any sized apps you want. So that might be worth it if you really like what you see here. We're going to go ahead and get started with showing you sort of what Xamarin is. First off, I want you to do the full install, and then once you've done that, or maybe have that going while you're watching the video, and I can give you kind of a tour of what Xamarin is all about. So stay tuned for that. So I'm just going to go over briefly what Xamarin is and talk about why we're actually using it, why you're here, why Xamarin is a cool thing. So basically, um, these uh, these slides sort of show the benefits of using Xamarin, basically. Um, with Xamarin, you can write C# apps for Android phones and tablets, as well as iOS, Windows Phone, Windows Store apps. You can even write Windows apps with it. You can reuse existing C# code that you might have from, for example, XNA, which was what we just did. C# is a very widely used language these days, so this was kind of a breakthrough that Xamarin was able to combine C# into making apps for all of these various types of platforms. As you can see, the install base of iOS is around 500 million. And these are a bit dated stats as well. Android is just over that at about 600 million. And then OS X is about 66 million, and Windows itself and Windows phones are at 1.5 billion. All of these can be covered by Xamarin. So before, it used to be the case that you would have to use Objective-C for iOS and Java for Android. And then, of course, Windows did use Java, but really nothing other than Mac stuff used Objective-C, so that was kind of a pain. So Xamarin has a bunch of different products. One of them is Xamarin iOS. We're going to mostly be using Xamarin Android, but your code that you use in Xamarin Android can be used for Xamarin iOS, so that's really a nice feature. You can also create native user interfaces using their interface creation tools, and this all ends up being inside of a native runtime, which means you get the benefits of native performance. So this isn't like PhoneGap or some of these other products which basically run over web sort of applications to allow you to view things. You can also use Java libraries if you need to for Android development. Anything that's custom to Android can be used there. So this works via something called Mono. Mono is a C#.NET implementation for Linux that was started back in 2001, released in 2004. It's it's used in quite a few different places, like GTK. It's also used in Unity, which is nice because Unity also uses C#. So the knowledge that you learn in this class, both in using XNA as well as in doing these apps, can apply directly to Unity, which is a large-scale game engine and very useful. It also exposes all the Android bindings as C#. So any specific library bindings are exposed as C# and you can use them directly. And it also ships as a native runtime and links out unused code. So it's very efficient that way in terms of creating reusable code. The way it works is basically C# and .NET and all of that is packaged into an APK, and that runs natively on the ARM processor through a platform, a shared platform that it creates for the IL. There's a simple unified installer, which is what you are installing now. That installs the Android SDK for you as well. You can also register if you want to deploy this with Google Play, and you can even deploy your starter apps if you really want to using that. As far as dev environments, it has Mac OS as well as Windows, and so it's kind of all over the place. No longer, like with XNA, we had a bunch of issues with installability on various types of machines, but with Xamarin, it's pretty much everywhere other than Linux at least. Here's the how the dev environment looks, and we'll be showing this in a little bit. This is showing some of the task stuff that we're going to be tackling soon in Visual Studio. That's something you can use, or you can use the Xamarin Studio. This is showing the UI designer inside of Xamarin. You can even use the Visual Studio UI designer. So this is showing the task setup that we're going to start in a little bit. The you can choose what type of ABIs you want to support, so what kind of CPU architecture, in other words. You can manage your builds and deployment all through the project options setting in Xamarin Studio. There's also a manifest which deals with the permissions and app configuration for you. This gets into issues like what access permissions. You know, when you use your smartphones, if you do have a smartphone, whenever you're installing a new app, it'll ask you what if you do accept the requirements of that app. For example, location settings, if you can access check-in or not, and you can determine which of those you're going to require of the user. And then there's even a publishing sign-up wizard that will use your Google Play credentials to actually publish this up to the cloud and put it onto Google Play. So I want to show you guys a quick demo of this running, which is basically the task thing that we're going to be going through with. This is what it's going to basically show you, is that we want to be able to add new tasks. This was the design for it. We want to be able to select these tasks, select them as done, and we basically want to be able to share this between iOS and Android. So you can see this being shared. The task.cs is being shared, as well as task view model, task list controller, and view controller are the structure that occurs on the iOS side. So it shares the core library, which is the business layer, the service access layer, the data layer, and then each of these has its own thing. So basically, just to recap really quickly, it's pretty much a full-featured development environment that allows you to do cross-platform iOS development and Android development. I'm going to show you a demo of the task management tool that we're about to make, and then we're going to do a short Hello World tutorial that you'll be able to participate in and actually get your own code working on it as well. One thing that I'll be able to teach you as we go is you don't need a device to actually do this part of the class. We have something known as the Android Virtual Device Manager, which emulates Android devices. And I am going to launch one of these devices, and I'm going to put the Tasky program on it. I think this one was working before. These can be kind of cumbersome to use. I've made several of them. It will create some for you. The ones that it creates for you sometimes need to be repaired, and to do that you just click on it and you go to repair, and as you can see, it's just repairing there for me. These ones, I think I don't have the API installed for them. If you do the full Android or if you do the full Xamarin install, you should have these additional ones. Usually I've had pretty good luck with the mono for Android _API_N, whatever N is, and N is basically the API number. So I'm going to go ahead and create, and I'm going to go ahead and say API 14 start, and this will launch it. And this takes a while. Hopefully it actually works. If not, I'll go back to a different API and run that. This is just kind of a quirk of app development you need to get used to, is dealing with these emulators that can be quite touchy, and they take quite a while to load. As you can see, this is loaded black and is taking quite a while to load up, and now it says Android, which doesn't mean it's fully started yet. You can't really count on it being fully started until you actually see the basic screen background, just like you would look at a smartphone, for example. That's coming, and I'm going to kind of pause the video and I'll tell you how long it took for that to load up. It usually takes like a couple minutes. It's a good time to go get coffee or soda or what have you. And sometimes I even have to press like the menu keys and that just to move it along. emulator has gone through some improvements since I started using it, but it is still quite putsy. Should also be noted that I'm running this on a fairly low-end machine, which was kind of state-of-the-art machine back in 2010, but obviously now it's 4 years old, so it's kind of lagging behind the times, and actually only on a 32-bit operating system, so it's going to take even longer than on my main Alienware machine that I usually use. So this might take up to 3 minutes to load, 3 or 4 minutes to load. And I'm going to go ahead. I got a little bit impatient, and I went ahead and went up to build, run, start without debugging, and it's going ahead and doing my detecting installed packages step. This may or may not work. Sometimes the desktop runs in the background of this Android emulator, and it just sort of works once you do the detecting installed packages step. If not, I'll just sort of restart it here. So it's installing its shared runtime. This is the shared runtime that runs on top of the Android so that it can run the C# code. So each and you can see it's working here now. We've got the battery preparing SD cards, so that's the actual OS responding there, and here it is coming up. So I clicked start without debugging at the right time. Sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to hand start it by going up to the run and then go to start without debugging, or start with debugging if you want to run the debugger. The debugger runs even slower than this, which is astonishing. But as I said, this is kind of a low-end machine, and hopefully you guys are probably running it on much faster machines than I have. This is like a Quadro NVS, I don't know, 320 graphics card or something like that. It's really old with 4 gigs of RAM and really not much to speak of for a motherboard. It is a dual core, but kind of older. So anyway, it's installing the shared runtime here, and these moments like this is when I wish that I was on my Alienware, but alas, I wanted to get videos done early tonight, so I ended up on this computer. Here we go with installing shared runtime. This should be done in moments, and the next thing it'll do is it'll deploy the application. Looks like it's restarting the device, which is fine. And another minute has gone by, and we're still waiting for the installed shared runtime. As I said, this can be painful. Not exactly sure what's going on. Let's take a look. If we go under our, it looks like it's signing the Android target right now. Yeah, this can take a while. If we go under tasks, we can see what it's actually doing. Here's a full list of what it's trying to do. Looks like the build did succeed. So we should see it coming up any second here. And here we go finally. It's actually doing something. Zero errors, so that's good. This is why a lot of people enjoy working in Windows only and staying in Windows. But anyway, it should be not too much longer. That was taking a bit too long, so what I did is I went ahead and restarted it. Here we go, now it worked. Ironically, I'm also installing an update at the same time at this point because I thought that might have been causing it. When you get it running the first time, you will see this thing that says select device. If you hit refresh on this, it should bring up the device that's going. So yeah, Mono for Android API 14. Sometimes you have to hit refresh to get that up. I'm going to cancel this update quick. Just hit OK on that. And it's going to hit detecting installed packages, installing shared runtime. So this is the part that it kind of had problems with before. Let's see how fast it goes this time. Seems to be going quite a bit faster, so sometimes the only solution is to kind of restart and try again. I will warn you that this the reason app development came second in this course is more complex than the XNA stuff. At least the deployment to device part is kind of shady. And now we got past the shared framework section. Now we're doing the platform framework. So that is a good sign. We want to do the shared runtime first, then the platform framework. So I'm going to go ahead and let this finish out. And now it should say installing application on device, which is what you want to see. That would be a good sign. So the device is actually going to be this emulator window here that the application should come up in. Synchronizing assemblies is one of the last steps as well. And then deployment completed you see on the screen here. Now this should come up, there we go, Tasky comes up. And this is the, and it's going to show you the output running down here. And that's the Tasky menu. Just going very slow. Something just happened.